Well, good morning. This is Professor Kent Lee, and I'm a new professor at Pukyung National University English Department. Welcome to my Advanced English Composition course. My last name is Lee, but as you can see, I am not Korean or Chinese. Lee is actually an Old English word. You can find it in the dictionary, and you see it in a few English expressions, mostly in older English literature, not so common today. But it's basically an old word for the side of a mountain or something that is protected from the wind, the lee side. So I'm from the US. My last name is British American or English American. I'm not Korean, although my wife is Korean. I'm just moving to Busan and look forward to teaching you and working here at this university. So the course, let's talk first a little bit about changes in the course as I take it over. So my thanks to the professor who taught this before. The first couple of weeks, I'm going to put up a new syllabus as soon as I can. There will be, of course, some changes in the course contents and the course plan. I'll get that up as soon as I can on the LMS. Basically, in terms of assignments, there are some kind of major assignments. There are a couple of kind of shorter essays. There's a midterm and final essay. The midterm and final might be connected, or the final might be connected with one of the other essays, which makes your work actually a little bit easier because you're revising, not just producing new things every time. Those are the major assignments. There are minor assignments in the course, occasional homework assignments, well, not occasional, but sometimes homework assignments, short writing assignments, paragraph writing assignments, and also some online forms. I like to use Google Forms for some short question and answer things, or short write-ups, or a couple of survey forms. And we'll talk more about your first couple of Google Form assignments later on in this lesson. There'll be a couple of Google Forms at first. Today we are going to talk about your writing process. More on that in a minute. Well, I'll mention a couple of Google Forms right now, and then I'll say a bit more at the end. The first Google Form, this is a minor writing assignment. So these minor assignments, I gave each one a point value, like 10 points usually, maybe 20 points, or such, depending on the assignment. At the end of the semester, I add up all of the points, and I convert it to a 100-point score. So let's say if there are 10 assignments worth 10 points each, that's 100 possible points. And that includes Google Form assignments, homework assignments, and such. And if you got 90 points out of 100, that's a score of 90 for your homework average. And more will be in the syllabus about this, so you can look at the syllabus later, and we'll talk about this again later. Your first Google Form is this. I will give you maybe a week or so to do this. I will provide you the link to the first Google Form in an email message or in the LMS. Your first Google Form, it's 10 points. You get 10 points just for doing this. It's no right or wrong. This asks you for some contact information. I'd like to have 2 email addresses from you, for example. For example, send feedback by email on major assignments. And I like to have 2 email addresses because sometimes email gets lost. This is especially true between Gmail and Korean email servers. If you use a Korean email server, emails get lost. It might be because of how Korean email servers work differently, but I suspect a good part of the problem is also with Gmail problems. So I will collect 2 email addresses for you, and then in this form I'm going to ask you some survey questions about how you feel about English and how you feel about your academic work. I might use this later for research purposes. There's no right or wrong. I want you to answer honestly. I want to know how you feel about these questions. and I might use this for my own research purposes, but you get 10 points just for doing it on time. The second form, due a bit later perhaps, will be about your writing process. Today we are going to talk about your writing process, and there are a couple of Google forms about this. One is a basic form about your writing process after we do our discussion today. And then there's going to be another Google form after we talk some more about writing strategies. And this will lead to your first essay assignment, which will be about your writing process. So more will follow, more information on these will follow later on. Your writing process. You might have discussed your writing process before in maybe your intermediate composition class, I don't know. But probably what you're doing today is a little different. We're going to spend about an hour, the first hour, talking about your writing process. So at times you're going to pause the video and discuss questions. And that, along with my lecture, should be about an hour for our first lesson. You might be at home, but you probably know some classmates. Your friends are in the department, for example, who you've taken classes with before. This would be better if you can contact some of your classmates, maybe if they're taking this class too. If not, just some classmates or some friends. If you don't have any friends you can contact and chat with by phone or email or video chat, talk to somebody. Talk to a friend in your apartment roommate or someone in your family. Talk to yourself if you have to. But it will help if you discuss these questions. Think about these questions. When I say pause the video and discuss this, it will really help. You really should pause this because we would do this in a normal classroom. We would do group discussions about questions. So in my class, I like to do a lot of group discussions because that really promotes the learning. So, first set of questions, your writing process. Let's say you have a writing assignment, maybe in a class in the English department or in another class. You have a writing assignment to do. How do you go about doing writing assignments? How do you get started? Do you need a certain environment? Do you need a quiet place, a noisy place, music, no music? What kind of environment do you like? Do you need a computer? Do you start with pen and paper or writing on the computer? How do you start generating ideas? What thoughts first go through your head? How do you start to organize things? How do you gather information? How do you start creating ideas? And how do you organize your ideas? How do you actually start writing? How long do you spend thinking about it or gathering information, organizing or brainstorming? You kind of generate a bunch of ideas and then organize them. Brainstorming. Do you have some kind of brainstorming process? Is it different for assignments that you have to write in English or Korean or another language? So how do you get started? What environment do you need for the actual writing? What do you go through? How many times do you then revise? How do you revise your writing? How often do you revise? What do you focus on when you revise? So kind of from start to finish, what is your writing process like? And then also, do you think it works well for you? So pause the video, talk to somebody, maybe think first, and then talk to somebody, pause, contact somebody, arrange to chat with somebody, talk about these questions, share your ideas and your thoughts. Okay, we're back. Some of the questions have to do with like environment. Do you need a noisy environment? Well, people are different and there's no one right way to do a writing assignment. It depends on you and your personality. And it may depend on the kind of writing you have to do. Does it depend on the kind of writing you have to do? Did your parents ever tell you, don't listen to music while you're studying? Did anyone ever tell you that? That may not be right. Some people find it helpful. I occasionally find it helpful. There's part of my brain that wants to kind of wander off and do something else, and sometimes the music helps that part of my brain, gives it something to do so the rest of my brain can focus on my writing. What kind of music do you like? What works for you? Soft jazz, heavy metal, movie themes, music with no words, quiet environment, noisy environment, with people, without people. What kind of process do you go through? So how do you get started? How do you get it? Do you need to gather information first? What do you do to gather information? What about getting ideas? Brainstorming. How do you brainstorm ideas? There are different ways of brainstorming things. What do you use? What works for you? There's no one method for everybody. It depends on you. But some people like to do mind mapping. I'll provide a handout with this information in the writing process, discussion questions, and also about the brainstorming methods. But some people like mind mapping. They kind of draw sort of circles around ideas and link them together. We call a mind map or a concept map. If you're more of a graphical kind of person, you might like that. Some people find it useful. I don't, but some people do. If it works for you, do it. Does it always work for you? Does it depend on the assignment? Some people just like to do free writing. They just write random things down, whatever ideas occur to them, and then they go from there and organize it. Some people like social brainstorming. Maybe you need to get with a group of friends and verbalize and toss around ideas, think about things verbally, share ideas. Social brainstorming. Some people may use a combination of these things. How about outlining? How many of you use outlining? Maybe you start with an outline. Do you start with an outline? Do you do it in your head? You have to write it on paper, write it on the computer, in the document. What works for you? If you have trouble, maybe you might find a combination of these might work for you. Start with, mind mapping or social brainstorming, and then use outlining to organize it. So do you use one method for generating ideas, brainstorming, and then do you use another method like outlining for then organizing ideas? As you're in college though, regardless of what you do, I do highly recommend outlining. Maybe in combination with a brainstorming technique, like what we've talked about, because academic writing has to be pretty organized. What we call the convention or expectation or standard in academic writing in any field is that it's logically organized. And outlining is a great tool for organizing your ideas and your thoughts before you start writing. So regardless of what you do, I highly recommend outlining, especially if you're having trouble. You can use a brainstorming technique and then outline before start writing your paper. But again, you do need to find what works for you. Revising. How often do you revise? What do you focus on? Do you focus on little things like grammar, punctuation, spelling first? Or do you focus on the overall ideas, the contents, the details, the flow of ideas? Because the more successful writers will first focus on the big picture. Do I have enough support or details for all of the main points in my paper, for all the main points in my outline? Do I have enough explanation? Do things flow logically together? Have I explained things well enough? Have I really proven these points adequately? Then they go and maybe work on the little details, the grammar and the spelling and such. So if you start focusing first on the grammar, spelling, and other little things, that can be kind of self-defeating because you're too worried about the little things. The big picture, the context, the flow, the details, that's more important. So is your revising process efficient? Is your writing process efficient? In the second email assignment, I'm going to ask you to evaluate your writing process. Is it efficient? Does it work well for you? is there some room for improvement? And does it differ depending on the kind of writing you have to do? Now, hard question. I'm going to ask you to pause the video in a minute and think about some harder questions. What problems do you have in writing? You have a writing assignment. What problems do you have? Do you procrastinate? That means you put it off. You wait and wait. You get an assignment and you procrastinate, don't want to do it, and then finally it's 11 o'clock at night and you realize, oh, I've got an assignment due tomorrow. You stay up all night, drink coffee and energy drinks, and you stay up all night. Does that work well? Why do you procrastinate? Do you have that problem? Have you been able to get over it, to deal with it? Another problem is writer's block. So that's where you get stuck. You're trying to write and you get stuck. Maybe you've been sitting in front of the computer for an hour and all you have is the title. The title. And that's it. You can't think. And you're just pulling your hair out trying to think, what can I write? And you're kind of pushing yourself too much. Or you've written a paragraph and you can't think of what to write anymore. You can't write. You get stuck. How do you get over that? What do you do? How do you start writing? And more importantly, why do you think you have these kinds of problems? Why do you think you have problems with blocks or procrastinating? Why? Think about yourself and maybe why you have such problems. How about writing in English and Korean, or maybe your first language is something else? How different is your writing process and maybe problems that you have? Does it depend on the language that you have to write in? You have to write an assignment in English or Korean or a different language? Or is it different depending on the kind of writing, or short writing, or an essay, or a final exam? How does it differ between languages or courses, different courses, or different kinds of writing assignments? And again, why do you think you have these difficulties in writing? How often do you have them? How have you been able to deal with them, at least temporarily? What do you do? But more importantly, why do you think you have these problems? Pause the video. Take a few minutes to seriously introspect, think about yourself, and then talk to someone else about your writing difficulties. Okay, we are back. What causes your problems with writing? Well, common problems that college students have. Some of these are common problems for students writing in their first language or in a second language. A common problem is not enough information. You've got a topic, maybe the professor gave you a topic, you don't have enough information. And sometimes professors give topics that are deliberately kind of general. And it's up to you to find a more specific aspect to write about as your main idea, your main topic. And this is where some people have trouble. I'm going to ask you to write about your own writing process and evaluate your writing process a little bit later. Where do you start? What's your main idea? I ask you, maybe somebody asks you to write a paper about misconceptions that parents have about language. Well, there's a lot you could write about. How do I educate my kid? How do I teach my kid English? There are it's a big topic, and it's really up to you to kind of narrow it down. So that means you probably need to go to the library or spend time reading stuff on the internet and identify something that's more specific or more doable. Because if your professor gives you this topic, well, it's probably a big topic where you could write a whole book. And so part of the problem is you don't know where to start because the topic itself is actually pretty broad or pretty big. You need to find information and find maybe information or aspects that are more doable in a single paper. Many college essay topics are deliberately broad, and they're big enough you could write. Again, a long time without going anywhere because you don't know how to organize your ideas. You need to find information and then identify what do you want to write about. What is your main idea? The main idea of your paper, or your main interest in this. Or at least what's manageable. Because if you try to cover the whole topic, it's not manageable. And so you're going to get lost. You're going to feel frustrated and I don't know where to start. You have to get information and find something. Now occasionally you have the opposite problem. Students find a very specific topic and it's too specific for the student to really deal with in a 3-page or 5-page essay. It's too narrow. So either you need to make the topic a little broader and more manageable, or you need to find more information on the topic first before you know what to do with it and where to start. Other problems may be, did you have any bad experiences in language classes or writing classes? Or did some teachers discourage you? Some teachers might have discouraged you. And I had this problem when I was younger, so I know. A bad teacher can mess up your enjoyment or your ability to do something for the rest of your life, and you may not know it. All my life I thought I was bad at math, but then I was doing my PhD, I had to take a lot of statistics, 통계학. At first I thought, oh, I don't like this. After I got into it, I realized I like this stuff. This is cool. I can use this for my research. It was useful to me. So I developed an interest in it. And that's the only way I got away from my math trap, which was caused by a bad teacher I had when I was young. You might have had teachers who discouraged you, who pushed you too hard, or who gave just really bad assignments or really boring class exercises or boring assignments or stuff that was too hard or something, or parents or society pushed you or made you feel bad or hurt your motivation. They hurt your feelings. So it might have been bad experiences with the language or with writing that maybe make you afraid of it or make you react against it or something like that. You may have negative feelings, so maybe you need to introspect about yourself. So think about this for a minute. Have you had bad experiences in the past with studying, with schooling, in general, or with a particular topic, or with language learning, or with writing? Did you have bad experiences that might now be causing your brain to say, I don't want to do this. That's writing, and I hate writing because my teacher made me feel so bad about writing back in high school or middle school. Is that true of you? Did you have bad experiences that affect how you now feel about writing? Because that may cause your brain to react defensively. When you procrastinate, it's maybe not because you're lazy or stupid, but it may be because you've got bad experiences or bad feelings about something, a topic or a task like writing, and your brain is reacting against it through procrastination or writer's block. Your brain is trying to avoid something that it sees as painful or potentially painful because you're afraid, oh, I'm going to do bad on this, stay away. Just surf the internet instead. Don't want to write. I don't want to write about this. I'd rather go to YouTube and spend 2 hours watching music videos on YouTube. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a study break. Sometimes your brain needs not only the break, but maybe something else. Just you're watching your music videos or your Breaking Bad or Star Trek. So while you're doing something else, your brain can kind of think about the problem and then come back to it maybe with some new energy and maybe some new ideas. Maybe your brain has had some time just to think about it while you're taking a break, and then, oh, okay, I can do it now. So maybe that's true of you too. There's nothing wrong with taking a break, but if it's so much that you can't do your work, then you need to introspect about what's causing this. What's causing the stress, maybe some kind of stress that you have that's causing the writer's block or procrastination. Next class, we're going to go deeper into the psychology. There might be some other issues involved too. And then we're going to talk about writing strategies as well. So, I think that's it for now. By the way, course book, I don't use standard writing textbooks. I'm putting together my own course book. Well, I kind of have one I've used before. And I will make it available to you whenever the time is right. I usually kind of make my own, and I, like this, and I make it available at a local print shop off campus. But things are kind of weird right now, so I will probably kind of make parts of this available as PDF handouts through the LMS or through my website. I'll have a course website later. I'll make parts of it available to you until maybe I'm ready or the time is right for me to maybe take it to a print shop or make it available to you somehow, the whole thing. But anyway, next time we'll talk more about your motivation for writing and particular strategies for writing. And I'm going to send you a link to the first Google form, survey questions and contact information about yourself. And then the second Google form. Today we talked about basics of your writing process, and I'm just going to ask you to fill out a little form where you tell me about your writing process and what's it like, and is it working well for you? Is it effective? And what kind of problems do you have? So I'll send you that link later. And until next time, have a good day. And I look forward to meeting you in class hopefully soon. Goodbye.